What if I told you you've been lied to your entire life? Well, maybe not for your entire life, but a good portion of it. For as long as we've known, one of the safest investments to do was to take your money, put it in the S&P 500, and let it gain 10% every single year. But what if there was a way to get 5 to 8 times more than that every single year that you just never knew about? Well, that's what I'm going to show you in today's video. We're going to go year by year and see exactly what it looks like to gain 10% on your money every single year for 5 years compared to new age investing where you could get 5 to 8 times the amount of that. So let's pull back the curtain because I'm about to drop a bomb on every single one of you guys. First, talk about the S&P 500 and what it actually is. It's a stock market index that tracks the top 500 publicly traded companies. And the average return on investment for putting your money in here and just letting it sit and letting it grow, on average, reaches 10% a year. Now, for some people, this is good enough right here. 10%, that's what they want. They want 10% on their money. But we're gonna go through and show your average person compared to a more wealthy person, and the reason why sometimes this isn't good enough and they're looking for something better. With the S&P 500 and investing in the stock market, there's no strategy that goes along with it. It's pretty much very simple, very straightforward. You put your money in it, you let it sit, and you let it grow over years. But what happens when 1 year doesn't give you that 10% and something drastic happens, like in 2008, where the S&P dropped nearly 39%, which means you would have lost almost half of the money that you had invested. Now, at this rate of 10% per year, it would have taken you about 5 years to get back into the positive of getting the average return there. But what if there was a new way to invest where you didn't have to even deal with any of this? And it just took literally seconds a day of a little bit of work to put in for you to be able to get 5 to 8 times more than this number right here. Now, it sounds too good to be true. I know, trust me, because you've probably heard over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos of people preaching to you that they can reach a certain percentage and they can hit higher numbers in the stock market and all this bull. But they never have numbers to actually back it. I'm gonna show you something completely different because I actually have the numbers to back what I'm preaching. Now, before I get to that, I do want to discuss one thing here. When we look at this and we look at putting our money into something, and we don't know, okay? We don't know if we're gonna reach a stretch like this where we end up losing a bunch of money or we're gonna gain money. What does that sound like? When you put money into something with you not knowing exactly what's going to happen. That sounds like gambling, right? But people think that this is the safest way to go, even though this is still gambling itself, because what happens when something like in 2008, where you lose a bunch of money, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. You just go off of the law of averages. And that's the only thing you could do is go off the law of averages to know if you're going to be able to make a gain or you might lose. That is gambling. No matter how much people want to say that the stock market is not gambling, it's still gambling because you're putting money into something not knowing what the end result is going to be. But what I'm about to show you is how you could take this number here and multiply it by 5 to 8 times and still have the same concept that we're looking at here. What I like to call it is true probability sports betting. Now, true probability sports betting is actually very simple to explain. It's as easy as this. Let's say the sports book is saying there's a 75% chance that an event that you could bet on is going to occur. But your statistical and analytical data that's been backed for years says what? That there's an actual 80% chance that that event is going to occur. You connect the dots right there, and what do you get? You get a plus 5% in your favor. Meaning what? This is what compounds over time to where you can literally just print money by just doing exactly what I just showed you. It's literally that simple. Now, how do you find the certain plays that are going to give you this gap and this edge here? Well, that's not as hard as you might think. It used to be. The reason why is because you used to have to do a bunch of manual work. You'd have to go to a million different websites and put all this analytical data down on paper and write it and compare it and everything like that. Luckily, I've did this for 10 plus years, and I ended up developing an AI chatbot system that literally just pops these numbers out for you and the plays that you could do, and literally just sit back, relax, and watch your money grow. It's called the Linemaker AI. Now, if you guys want a trial to see exactly how to find these plays, so that way you don't have to worry about doing any manual work, make sure you click the link in the description. But as simple as this sounds, because compared to the S&P 500 and investing in there, you just put your money in there, there's no strategy, there's nothing. You just put your money into it, and you just let it sit, right? And you just let it go, and you let it grow. That's really all it goes. That's all that goes into it. Well, the same concept is here, okay? But the ROI is completely different, where you can get 50 to 80% returns compared to 10%, where the risk is exactly the same. Now, the reason why people argue this so much and think that the stock market is a better place to put your money is because it's been baked in your guys' brain for years on end. That is exactly where your money should go, because that's not gambling, that's investing. But I'm here to tell you, when you are looking at this the correct way, with the strategy that I implement, it's not gambling. It's investing. It's the same exact concept. Because instead of investing in the top 500 companies that are public right now, on any given day, you're investing in the highest probability plays for individual players to be able to achieve or to not achieve. It's the same concept, it's just a different vehicle. Now I'm gonna pop a screenshot up here of last year, 2025, so that way you guys can see exactly what the recorded numbers were in 2025 for being able to do this over the course of an entire year. And that is strictly staying to true probability sports betting, which is finding the gap between a implied probability of what the sports book or the prediction market is giving you and finding the true probability to be higher than that. Now, running through a quick example of this, we're going to use baseball for example. Let's just say Ohtani, because he loves to bet on sports, right? Let's say Ohtani has a implied probability of 75% chance to get a hit. On the season, he's going about 82%, let's say, okay? Let's say 82% of the time he's being able to get a hit in a game. Now, on top of that, let's say he's facing a pitcher that he absolutely rocks, because that's one of the key things when it comes to true probability betting. You have to have the matchup as well, because the player needs to have a matchup against the person that they're going against. It can't just be random numbers that you guys are picking. You have to have the matchup to go along with it. So let's say he has a great matchup and he has an 82% true probability of him being able to get a hit. Well, that right there created a plus 7% edge. And what does that compound into over time? You take these type of plays, and that's what compounds into your gains being 50 to 80% over the long haul. But what does that look like down on paper with somebody that has an average bankroll of an average sports bettor compared to somebody who is an average investor in the stock market? This is where things get interesting, because you have two different sectors of people and two different sectors of investing. Now, I'm going to throw the numbers up and we're going to check out exactly why one person is satisfied when the other isn't. Now, your average sports bettor has a bankroll of about $1,000. The average stock market investor has about $1 million to invest. Now, let's take a look at a 5-year plan here at going 10% and how this looks. Let's take a look at your average sports to hit 10% over the haul of 5 years. Year 1, he moves the needle to 1,100. Year 2 moves the needle to 1,210. Year 3 moves it to 1,331. Year 4, we go to 1,464. And then year 5, to wrap it up, we go to 1,610. So take a look at this side of the board real quick. This right here. Over 5 years, he was able to take his $1,000, and this is compounding it every year, because that's what happens in the stock market when you just leave it in there. It starts compounding. But this is compounding it every year. And he started with 1,000. After 5 years, he's at $1,610. So what happens there? The person that has $1,000 is never going to see that, because they're not waiting 5 years to make $600. They're never going to do that. Your average sports bettor that has that type of bankroll would never continuously do sports betting at this slow of a margin. Like, they would never, okay? 99.9999% of people that are in the sports betting industry would never go down this path. And this right here is the path of your average S&P 500 percentage, which is the average of what the stock market can produce. Now let's flip this to your average stock market investor that's wealthy with $1 million to throw into it. Year 1, he's at $1.1 million. Year 2, he's at $1.2 million. Year 3, $1.3 million. Year 4, $1.4 million. And year 5, $1.6 million. So over the course of his 5 years, he's made $610,000 in profit. That sounds a whole lot better, right? Than the guy over here who made $600. This is why wealthy investors go to the stock market, because they're satisfied with a 10% return on investment of not having to do anything and sitting over that course of years and compounding, they make good money. But now what if we took this and translated this into the sports betting sector that produces 50 to 80% returns rather than 10%? How much money are we looking at then? Now, you never used to be able to do this. The reason why is because sportsbooks, once you started winning, you could never have a bankroll like this and make that type of money because the sportsbooks cut you off quick, real quick. You wouldn't be able to make this type of money within 5 years. It just wouldn't happen. You'd be cut off. But now we have prediction markets where it's peer-to-peer, and as long as the volume is there, you can bet as much money as you want. So you can have a $5 million, $10 million bankroll for investing and translate that into sports betting, which is why I said this is the new age of investing, because I'm going to show you exactly the gains and what they look like when you absolutely slaughter this number right here. So what I showed you guys in the screenshot from last year was an 83% return. We're going to use something a little bit less than that because I'm going to say last year was one of the better years. I'm going to say on average a 50% return. We're going to look at what a 50% return gets you on both levels here, being the $1,000 sports bettor and the $1 million stock market investor. Now, before I get into that, the reason why this person over here, the average sports bettor, never gets to the level that they want to is because they cannot see it through. They never see it through because what they're expecting here is starting with $1,000 and year one having $1 million. Unrealistic. This side right here is really just not understanding that you can't do that. There is no get rich quick scheme ever. There's none that exist, and any that you see are complete bull. They're not true. There's no get rich quick scheme. It takes time. It takes time and it takes patience and it takes the right strategy. There's a mix of things that need to go together for you just to be able to make money off of your money and not lose it. So now let's go ahead and get to year one with the $1,000 investor. He's now at $1,500 after year one, which is, look at that. After 1 year, he's almost made the exact return in 5 years of the S&P 500. Year two, he's at $2,250. Year three, he's at $3,375. Year four, $5,062. Year five, $7,593. So take a look at this journey now. Started out with $1,000, compounding after every year, same way that the stock market works. Compounding after every year got us to what? $7,593. That's a little bit better, right? That's a little bit better for somebody that started out with $1,000. They ended a 5-year run pretty much, 7.5 times their money. So I mean, you can't complain there. You can't complain. That is what you would want to see, an accelerated growth to make more money, to have opportunity to make more money. Now, let's go to the other side here, because the other side here is going to be absolutely insane, obviously, if that's what happened here. So year one for the $1 million man, we got $1.5 million. I already made a $500,000 return there. $500,000 in profit. Year two, $2.2 million. We've already doubled it and some. Year three, we're at $3.3 million, almost $3.5 million actually. Year four, now we've crossed the threshold. $5 million. And then year five, as you can see, we're just pretty much emulating here. You're just adding zeros to it. We go $7.5 million over the course of 5 years. So take a look at that. We started with $1 million, now we're at $7.5 million. And like I said, this is at the more conservative mark. This isn't even at the 83% mark that I showed you guys from last year. So don't fall for the old ways of doing things, because we are in a new age of investing where you can make more money than you've ever seen. And it's not through just letting it sit in the stock market. You could still do that. I'm not saying don't do that, but the growth on that is going to take a while. And people that have a lesser amount of money to start out with are not going to sit there for 6 years to make $600. They're just not going to do it. Most sports bettors won't even sit there and make a double their investment in 1 month. They won't even stay consistent to do that. That is where you have to change your mindset. You have to realize that investing and sports betting are now becoming one. But they're only becoming one if you have the right strategy down. Because if you don't have the right strategy down and you're just out there willy-nilly throwing plays in, betting games, betting on teams, and you have no idea what you're doing, you're going to lose. Just like in the stock market, if you're out there trading stocks and you have no idea what stocks you're trading or what they're doing, you're going to lose money. It's the same exact concept. You have to have the right strategy, you have to have the right discipline, the right patience, and the consistency to do either of what I just taught you. If you don't, it doesn't matter how much money you have because you're going to fail regardless. But again, if you want to choose the path that's going to get you 5 to 8 times more of your money than your money just sitting there in the stock market, this is the way to go. And I'm sure I'm going to get a ton of people that are going to say, there's no way it's possible to do that. Well, guess what? I just showed you the numbers over the course of last year, and I could pull those for 5 to 10 years. So, like I said, on average, conservatively, 50% is what you get with the right strategy in place, which is the true probability strategy for sports betting. Now, again, if you guys want a shortcut for the strategy for sports betting, where you literally just get the plays spit out, literally every single day, you just get it spit out to you, and you don't have to do any manual work, make sure you guys click the link down in the description so that way you can start a trial with the Linemaker AI. And all you got to do is literally ask, give me plays that have a true probability of 80 to 90%, and it'll spit those out for you. It's that simple. Stop sitting on the sidelines trying to figure out, guess how to make money in the new age of sports betting and investing, and instead just listen to somebody that's been doing it. As always, I'm Frank, Linemaker Sports. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, I'm out.